Hi. Last Thursday, I had the opportunity to sit down and interview Mr. Evan Bundros of Train Air Conditioners. I know Mr. Evan Bundros from, he's actually a family friend, kind of like a godfather to me. Grew up with a very close relationship, but I didn't really know much about his job. We'd had a couple conversations about it, and one of the conversations actually made me interested and kind of is what motivated me to come to ECU and study business. Um, that being said, um, while this is someone I know pretty well, I really didn't, like I said, I didn't really know that much about his job. I knew where he worked. I knew that he was a salesman, but I didn't know that much about it. So this opportunity to meet with him and talk about it was actually a really, really cool thing. So, without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Actually, I asked him a lot of questions that are on this list. I did go over those, but I also asked a lot of questions that were not on the list that you provided. We went into a lot of detail. This video runs long. I'm thinking I'm going to hit 15 minutes on this bad boy. I apologize. But there's a lot of really good stuff that I learned from this interaction. So let's get right into it. The first question I asked was, how did you get into this field? And he says that he grew up tinkering with stuff. He was always a little bit, always enjoyed building things. If he wasn't deer hunting, he was building something. And that's kind of what sparked his interest in the engineering thing. He went to NC State for engineering back when it was, a lot easier to go to NC State. And he got a degree in engineering and jumped right into the sales business, things like that. How did he come across Train? Well, Train specifically has sales engineers on their sales staff. That's how they refer to the sales staff. It makes their company sound a little bit more credible when you have someone on the phone who knows what they're talking about in regards to how the air conditioner works and can answer questions if people have any problems. So it's really, really an effective way for Train to be successful. He started working there after 10 years of working other places. I can't really quite remember the specific names. And he jumped in the position as a sales engineer. Next question I asked Mr. Bundros was, sorry, I got to pull up my list here. Next question I asked was, are specific majors or coursework necessary for entering and succeeding in the field? For Train specifically, he says that, it's nice to have something in engineering, though it is not a requirement. As for a job in sales in general, any type of business degree would be really, really good. I asked, what does a typical career path in sales look like? He says the key to getting hired at a really decent firm is to be good at being a salesman in general. You want to get experience. You want to get out in there and shake as many hands as you can, and then that'll give you the better chance of working somewhere nice. I asked what professional or trade associates he might recommend. It's good to have connections and contacts, he says, and those come from shaking hands, like you said earlier. It all depends on who you meet. You should try to get to know people who may be working at various companies and remember their names. It'll be very useful to your success later. Fifth question was, what do you read in print and online to keep up with developments in your field? And I didn't really ask it like that because that sounds really straight up and like really kind of scripted. So I just asked him, like, what has he read, or if there is a book or something that's helped him be successful. And sure enough, he says to me that the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie has been one of the most effective books and effective tools to his success as a salesman. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People covers topics such as obviously meeting a new face, talking in terms of the other person's interest, smiling, being a good listener, and I think probably the most important of those is just how to make people like you instantly. So he says that the points and the principles discussed in Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People were absolutely essential as he was working in this field. And this is like, I'm going to kind of speak for him for a second. When you meet somebody for a sales lunch, you always got to know like what to talk about. You got to make small talk. So the best thing to do is ask about kids if they've got kids. If they hop out of a nice truck, ask about the truck. You got to talk in terms of the other person's interest. You have to, anybody can be a salesman, he said. Anybody can try to sell you something. But your job or your goal to be a good salesman is to make people want to sell you something because, or want to buy something from you, because it doesn't seem like you're just looking for the money in their pocket. And I thought that was very interesting. Now, we dove really deep into this topic because I like to read success books. And I asked him, how important do you think it is I read this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People? He said, if you do nothing else, read that book. And I said, that's great, because actually in 4 years of marching band, I had to read that book 4 different times. So I'm very much so familiar with Dale Carnegie's principles. In fact, I've branched out to other books such as The One Thing by Gary Keller, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and People Skills by Robert Bolton. Couldn't remember who wrote that one. So those books have also been really helpful with my life as a college student so far. But as far as sales goes, and Mr. Bundros' job especially, his job is a lot on how you relate to people and how you get to know them. And that rapport is what leads to sales and is what leads to making that nice commission. You have to be good at meeting people. That led to another question. Well, were you I asked, are you an extrovert when you were, or were you extroverted or introverted? Did you have to make a lifestyle change when you got into this business? And he said yes and no. Growing up, it depended on who I was around. If there were people I wasn't really comfortable with, I was an introvert. If there were people I liked, I'd be very extroverted. But when I joined sales, I had to be an extrovert both times. If there were people I really wasn't sure about, I still had to be extroverted, still had to be very friendly. If there were people I was comfortable with anyway, it was all right. So there wasn't much of a change, but there definitely was one there. And I asked, do you have to develop on these skills with meeting people and shaking hands and really solidifying, deals in the business and blah, blah, blah? Did you really, did you have to practice the skills, like the meeting people, the ability to listen well, things like that? And he says, absolutely. You can't just read a book, he says. You can't just read a book and say, okay, good, now I know everything. Okay, you can read the book and retain the knowledge, but you have to practice it and work on it every year. One of the ways he does that is he'll flip through How to Win Friends and Influence People just to refresh and see if there's anything he's missed, any principle, any point that he might not be certain about, and then go and work on it in his in his career. And that has been essential to his success. So I'm sorry I got a little off topic there, but that was really interesting. I found that to be very helpful. I asked what a typical day looks like in his industry, and basically what he says is you go to the office, you make phone calls, or you go out on sales calls, you might meet with a customer, get lunch with them, or go see what type of air conditioning they need. I asked, what are the biggest challenges facing your company and your industry today? In terms of air conditioning, the biggest problem that Trane has are small local businesses that repair air conditioners. Common sense here, if somebody can get their air conditioner fixed, they don't need to buy a new air conditioner. So companies that do HVAC repair are really kind of hurting them a little bit. And then my follow-up question was, do you see the business changing in anytime soon? And he said, not really. People are going to keep using air conditioning, so it's a pretty stable market, which I thought was very true. And after that, let's see, I'm at the list here. I said, what do you like most about your field and occupation and about being a salesman? And his response was also very provocative here. He says, I absolutely enjoy this job because I work for commission. Now, don't take it the wrong way, not the financial aspect, but my success as a salesman depends on me. The money I make depends on how well I do, how hard I work. So if I don't work on those skills like I told you about earlier with reading the books and trying to get better at meeting people, if I don't make sure I know everything there is to know about the air conditioner that I'm selling, then I'm not going to make as much money. But if I do, I'm going to make more sales. So there's a direct correlation between how hard I work and the success I yield. And that makes my paycheck and makes my job just that much more rewarding because I know that I'm fully responsible of how well I do, which I think is really cool and is also another reason why I'm interested in the field. I said, next one is, what is unique or different about your company And he said the main differentiating thing about Train is that we have sales engineers. We all know a lot about engineering on the sales staff, so we have so much more credibility to other competitors. It makes companies like bigger businesses want to listen to us because we're not going to try to rip them off because we are engineers and we know how our product works, which I think is pretty cool. Credibility is also another big word that we used a lot in our discussion. I asked what professional publications or organizations or things I can do right now that you would consider relevant. And he says any type of fraternity in terms of like business-based, not so much as like a, I don't know what they're called, like the friend fraternity or whatever they're, I don't even know, but like a fraternity that's based around business or some type of club or organization that's based around a business atmosphere. Because another thing that we talked about that was a little off topic was making connections and making contacts. Why wait until I'm a graduate student, or why wait until I'm a senior in college to start shaking hands, to start getting to know people? The key is to start early, be proactive and not reactive, okay? If I can get connections in a business fraternity or a business club, such as the Student Leadership Board or whatever that finance club is, one of those two, it's going to pay off not only now, but next year and the year after that and years to come. So it's important that you obviously get involved on campus, but get involved in the right things, which I found to be very true and very interesting. And then the last question, of course, that you had for us is there anyone you could put me in touch with that might have good information? He offered me some contact info for other people. He asked me not to write their names down, and he on this interview, and he also told me that he might be able to hook me up with an internship opportunity, which I think is super cool. So we talked about other things, though, that I want to dive into, more specifically regarding around how his job makes him have to work with people. What we tend to forget about in college, especially in classes, and this is us, like, again, this is our discussion that we talked about. We talked about how, like, in college, we tend to get so wound up in the textbook and about different topics, we don't realize that being a businessman, there's a lot more skills that you need more than book smarts, okay, that aren't just being book smart. You have to know how to interact with people. But there's also little tricks of the trade that he's learned after 30 years. One of the really coolest things I think that I got to learn from Thursday's interview was that golf is an important part of business. The sport of golf and knowing how to play can be very effective if you're in sales. Because a lot of times if you're trying to make a big client, you can say, hey, let me take you out to the course and we'll play a few holes of golf. I don't know if that's the right lingo. I got to learn golf myself. But golf is an essential thing. So it's a way that you can secure deals. And stuff when you work with a client. Another thing, taking somebody out to lunch. You have to have really good table manners. You have to have very good, you should always offer to pay for the check, but if they offer to pay for the check, you don't want to argue over it, be like, no, I got it. You have to let each other go. It's these little things that seem like they don't matter that are often the most important. The little ones that are so easy to overlook are the things that matter the most in this environment. And it was really cool getting to know that. And he also stressed the importance of proactive and not reactive. Reading these books now and talking about things like a career now saves that struggle for the future, saves the pain and the crazy, stress for my senior year. Like I said earlier, why wait until I'm about to graduate to try to become why wait till I'm about to graduate to try to learn all this stuff at once? I'm not going to be as employable as if I've had these skills that I've been working on for 4 years. So we had a really great talk, a really great conversation. I'm super stoked about hopefully getting involved in the sales business. Mr. Bundros is a great guy. He's been a family friend for years and many more years to come. I'm very lucky that I got to meet with him. I really enjoyed this assignment, believe it or not. I don't know if people have complained to you about it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it because it's a firm reminder of why I'm in college. We tend to forget about that. We tend to come here and all the noise and all the craziness, and we forget about why we showed up here in the first place, and today was a firm reminder of why I'm here. Or Thursday. Anyway, thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope my grade reflects that you enjoyed the video. Thank you.